The worst decisions always seem brilliant in the moment, which is exactly why Maya found herself sprinting through a torrential downpour toward a stranger's beach house at 9 o'clock on a Friday night. She had been walking along the coastal path when the sky opened up without warning, transforming a pleasant evening stroll into a nightmare. The rain came down in sheets so thick she could barely see 3 feet ahead. Her phone was dead, her car was 2 miles back at the public beach parking lot, and the wind was strong enough to knock her sideways. When she spotted the massive beach house with its lights blazing through the storm, she didn't hesitate. She ran. Maya pounded on the front door, water streaming down her face and into her eyes. She was about to knock again when the door swung open, revealing a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a cologne advertisement. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes that were an impossible shade of blue. He wore jeans and a white linen shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and he looked completely startled to find a drowned rat of a woman on his doorstep. "Please," Maya gasped. "I was walking and the storm came out of nowhere. My phone's dead and I can't get back to my car. Can I just wait here until it passes?" He stared at her for a moment, then stepped aside immediately. "Of course. Come in, please." Maya stumbled into the foyer, instantly aware that she was dripping all over what looked like very expensive hardwood floors. The house was stunning, all floor-to-ceiling windows facing the ocean, modern furniture in whites and blues, and artwork that looked like it belonged in a museum. "I'm so sorry about your floor," she said, wrapping her arms around herself. Her sundress was plastered to her body and she was starting to shiver. "Don't worry about the floor." He disappeared down a hallway and returned moments later with a stack of fluffy towels. "Here. The bathroom's just down that hall if you want to dry off properly. I can throw your clothes in the dryer if you'd like." Maya took the towels gratefully. "That's really kind, but I don't want to impose. I'm sure the storm will pass soon." As if the universe wanted to prove her wrong, lightning cracked across the sky so bright it lit up the entire living room, followed immediately by thunder that shook the windows. The lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. "Or not," Maya said weakly. She heard him moving in the darkness, then the soft glow of his phone flashlight illuminated his face. "Storm must have taken out a transformer. The backup generator should kick in any second." Sure enough, a low hum filled the house and dim emergency lights came on throughout the first floor. It was enough to see by, though the house had taken on an intimate, shadowy quality. "I'm Ethan, by the way," he said, setting his phone on the counter as a makeshift lamp. "Maya, and I really am sorry for barging in like this. You made the smart choice. That storm's dangerous." He walked to the massive windows overlooking the ocean. Maya joined him, clutching the towels, and gasped. The sea was a churning mass of black water and white foam, waves crashing against the shore with terrifying force. The wind howled around the house, making the whole structure creak. "I've never seen it this bad," Ethan said quietly. "I've had this house for 3 years and I've seen some storms, but nothing like this." Maya's phone buzzed suddenly in her pocket, startling them both. It had just enough life left for her to see the emergency alert. Severe weather warning. Coastal flooding expected. Residents advised to shelter in place. Do not attempt to travel. "Well," she said, showing him the screen before her phone died again. "Looks like I'm stuck here." Ethan turned to look at her, and in the dim light she couldn't quite read his expression. "Then I guess we should get you into some dry clothes. I have a sister who leaves stuff here sometimes. You look about the same size." "That would be amazing. Thank you." He led her upstairs to a guest bedroom that was bigger than her entire apartment back in the city. Everything was pristine white linens and pale blue accents, with French doors that opened onto a balcony overlooking the storm-tossed ocean. Ethan pulled out yoga pants and a soft cotton sweater from the dresser. "Bathroom's through there," he said, pointing to a door. "Take your time. I'll be downstairs." After he left, Maya peeled off her soaking clothes and took the quickest shower of her life, warming up under the hot water. The clothes fit perfectly, and she towel-dried her hair before heading back downstairs. She found Ethan in the kitchen, which was illuminated by several candles he'd arranged on the marble countertop. He'd changed into dry clothes too, and was pulling things out of the refrigerator. "I figure the power might be out for a while, so we should probably eat anything that won't keep," he said. "Are you hungry?" Maya's stomach answered with a loud growl, making them both laugh. "Apparently, yes. Good. I was going to make dinner anyway when you showed up." He set out cheese, crackers, fruit, and what looked like homemade pasta salad. "Nothing fancy, but it'll do." They sat at the kitchen island, and Maya found herself relaxing despite the bizarre situation. "So do you live here full-time, or is this really a summer place?" "Summer place, mostly. I'm in the city during the week for work, but I try to get out here on weekends. It's my escape from reality." He smiled, and it transformed his whole face, making him look younger and less serious. "What about you?" "Local. I live about 40 minutes inland. I'm an art teacher at the community college, and I come to the coast whenever I need to clear my head. There's something about the ocean that makes everything feel manageable." "I know exactly what you mean." Ethan poured them both glasses of wine. "What do you teach specifically?" "Painting, mostly. Some drawing classes. I love it, even though the pay is terrible and half my students are only there because they need an art credit." She took a sip of wine and nearly moaned. It was the best wine she'd ever tasted. "This is incredible. It's from a vineyard in Napa. A friend of mine owns it." He said it casually, but Maya was starting to piece together that this wasn't just a nice beach house. This was a very expensive beach house, and Ethan wasn't just some regular guy who worked in the city. "What do you do for work?" she asked. He hesitated, just for a second. "I'm in real estate development." It was technically true, Maya supposed, but she had the distinct impression he was downplaying it. The house, the wine, the way he carried himself with that quiet confidence of someone who'd never had to worry about money. But she didn't push. If he wanted to keep things vague, that was his business. The storm continued to rage outside, and they fell into easy conversation. Ethan asked about her art, seemed genuinely interested in her teaching philosophy. She learned he'd grown up in California, gone to school on the East Coast, and had been working in property development for almost a decade. He had one sister, Emily, who was a veterinarian and married with 2 kids. His parents had retired to Hawaii. "This house is my favorite project," he admitted as they moved to the living room, bringing the candles and wine with them. "I found the lot 5 years ago, bought it, and spent 2 years designing exactly what I wanted. Every detail is intentional." Maya could see that. Even in the dim light, the house was a masterpiece of modern architecture and thoughtful design. "It's beautiful. You have great taste." "I can't take all the credit. I hired an incredible architect." He settled onto the couch, and Maya sat on the opposite end, curling her feet under her. "But I knew what I wanted. A place that felt open to the ocean but also cozy. Somewhere I could bring people but also be perfectly happy alone." "Do you come here alone often?" "More often than I probably should. Emily thinks I'm turning into a hermit," he grinned. "But I like the quiet. The city is so loud, so demanding. Out here I can just be." Maya understood that completely. "That's how I feel about painting. The rest of the world disappears and it's just me and the canvas." "What do you paint?" "Landscapes, mostly. Seascapes especially." "I'm probably a cliché, but I can't help it." The way the light hits the water, the colors in a sunset, the texture of sand and foam, it never gets old. Ethan's eyes lit up. I have a painting in my bedroom that sounds exactly like what you're describing, a seascape at sunset. The colors are unreal, purples and oranges and this deep blue. I bought it at a gallery in the city about 6 months ago. Really? Who's the artist? He frowned, thinking. I can't remember him something. Let me go check. He jogged upstairs and returned a minute later with his phone flashlight illuminating a photograph he'd pulled up. Here, do you know them? Maya's heart stopped. She knew that painting intimately. She'd spent 3 weeks on it, working and reworking the colors until they matched the vision in her head. It was one of her best pieces, and she'd been stunned when the gallery had sold it for $3,000. That's mine, she said softly. I painted that. Ethan's eyes went wide. You're M. Chen? Maya Chen, yes. She felt her cheeks heating up. You bought my painting. I love that painting. It's the first thing I see every morning. He was staring at her with something like wonder. This is incredible. What are the odds? Maya laughed, slightly giddy from the wine and the surreal nature of the entire evening. Considering I'm stranded in a stranger's beach house during a tropical storm, I'd say tonight is pretty much throwing odds out the window. Fair point. He refilled their wine glasses. I can't believe you're here. I've looked at that painting hundreds of times and wondered about the person who created it. What did you wonder, if they were as calm and peaceful as the scene they painted? If they felt what I felt when I looked at it, that sense of everything being right in the world, even if just for a moment. Maya's breath caught. No one had ever described her work that way before. That's exactly what I was trying to capture. That perfect moment when the day is ending and everything is bathed in that golden light, and you feel like maybe everything will be okay. They talked for hours, the storm raging outside forgotten as they discovered shared tastes in music, books, and art. Ethan was easy to talk to, thoughtful and funny, with a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard and made her laugh. He told her about the disaster that was his attempt to learn surfing, and she told him about the time she'd accidentally set her college dorm's kitchen on fire trying to make grilled cheese. Around midnight, Maya yawned so wide her jaw cracked, and Ethan immediately looked apologetic. I'm keeping you up. You should get some sleep. I'm okay, she protested, but another yawn betrayed her. Come on. You can take the guest room you changed in. It has the most comfortable bed in the house. He stood and offered his hand to help her up. Maya took it and felt a jolt of electricity at the contact. Ethan's hand was warm and strong, and he held hers for just a second longer than necessary before letting go. Upstairs, he showed her where extra blankets were, how to work the blinds, and promised that the bathroom had everything she might need. Thank you, Maya said at the doorway, for everything. For taking in a crazy woman who showed up in a storm, for feeding me, for being so kind. This could have been a really terrible night, but it's actually been wonderful. Ethan's smile was soft and genuine. I'm glad you knocked on my door, Maya. Sleep well. She closed the door and leaned against it, her heart racing. This was crazy. She'd known this man for a few hours, and she was already feeling things she had no business feeling. He was clearly wealthy, sophisticated, probably had women throwing themselves at him constantly. And yet, the way he'd looked at her, the way they'd talked so easily about everything and nothing, felt real in a way that made her chest ache. Maya climbed into the incredibly comfortable bed and listened to the storm outside. The wind had died down a bit, but the rain was still coming down hard. She thought about Ethan in another room, maybe also lying awake, and felt a flutter of anticipation for the morning. She dreamed of painting by the ocean with someone beside her, too blurry to make out, but warm and present and right. Maya woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the sound of birds chirping. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then the events of the previous night came flooding back. She grabbed her phone from the nightstand, hoping it had somehow gained a charge, but it was still dead. The smell of coffee and bacon lured her out of bed. She padded downstairs in her borrowed clothes to find Ethan in the kitchen, cooking breakfast like he did this every day. He changed into shorts and a t-shirt, his hair still damp from a shower, and he looked entirely too good for so early in the morning. "Good morning," he said cheerfully. "I hope you're hungry. I tend to go overboard with breakfast." The kitchen island was loaded with scrambled eggs, bacon, fresh fruit, toast, and what looked like homemade pancakes. "You made all this, cooking relaxes me. Plus, I figured you'd need a good meal before the trek back to your car. How'd you sleep? Better than I have in months." "That bed is a cloud." She accepted the coffee he handed her and took a grateful sip. "How bad is it out there? Come see." They walked to the windows and Maya gasped. The beach was littered with debris, driftwood, and seaweed scattered everywhere. The waves were still rough, but nothing compared to last night's fury. The sky was a brilliant blue with just a few wispy clouds. "The coastal road is flooded in some places," Ethan said. "I checked the news. They're saying it should be passable by this afternoon." Maya felt an unexpected pang of disappointment. Of course she needed to get home, check on her apartment, make sure everything was okay. But part of her wanted to stay in this bubble a little longer. They ate breakfast together, and Maya insisted on helping clean up despite Ethan's protests. They moved around the kitchen easily, finding a rhythm like they'd done this 100 times before. "I should try to head out," Maya said reluctantly when everything was clean. "See if I can get through." "Let me drive you," Ethan said immediately. "Your car is 2 miles away and you'll be walking through flood debris." "You don't have to do that. I know, but I want to." His blue eyes were sincere. "Besides, I need to check on a property in town anyway. It's not out of my way." Maya agreed, and they set out in Ethan's Range Rover, navigating carefully around fallen branches and deep puddles. The damage from the storm was apparent everywhere. Torn awnings, toppled signs, a sailboat that had somehow ended up in someone's front yard. When they reached the public parking lot, Maya was relieved to see her 12-year-old Honda Civic right where she'd left it, looking no worse for wear. Ethan pulled up beside it. "Well," Maya said, suddenly feeling awkward. "Thank you again for last night and this morning, and the ride." "Maya, wait." Ethan pulled out his phone. "Can I get your number? I'd really like to see you again, maybe under less dramatic circumstances." Her heart soared. "Yes, definitely yes." They exchanged numbers and Ethan's fingers brushed hers as he handed back her phone. "Are you free for dinner tomorrow night?" "I am now." His grin was boyish and delighted. "Perfect. I'll text you." Maya got into her car, which thankfully started without issue, and watched Ethan drive away. She sat there for a moment, hardly believing the last 12 hours had been real. Then she plugged in her phone and headed home, already counting down the hours until she'd see him again. Her apartment had survived the storm without damage, and Maya spent the rest of Saturday catching up on laundry and trying not to obsessively check her phone. Ethan had texted around lunchtime with a simple "hope you made it home safe," and they'd exchanged a few messages, but nothing substantial. Sunday morning, he sent her an address and told her to dress casually. Maya changed outfits 4 times before settling on white jeans and a navy blue top that made her eyes look greener. She left her dark hair down in loose waves and kept her makeup simple. The address led her to a charming Italian restaurant in a small coastal town she'd never visited before. It was the kind of place that looked like it had been there for 50 years, family-owned and loved, with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. Ethan was waiting outside, and his face lit up when he saw her. He looked effortlessly handsome in dark jeans and a light blue button-down, and Maya's stomach did a little flip. "You look beautiful," he said, kissing her cheek in greeting. "So do you. I mean handsome. You look handsome." Maya mentally kicked herself, but Ethan just laughed. Dinner was perfect. They shared bruschetta and split a margarita pizza that was the best thing Maya had ever tasted. Ethan told her about checking on his properties after the storm, the damage assessments and insurance claims he'd have to deal with. Maya talked about her students, the fall semester coming up, the new technique she was trying to master. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said over tiramisu. "And you can tell me if I'm overstepping anything. You said you're in real estate development, but I get the sense that's not the whole story. The beach house, this restaurant where the owner clearly knows you well, the way you talk about properties plural. You're not just a developer, are you?" Ethan set down his fork and met her eyes. "You're perceptive." "No, I'm not. My company, Morrison Development, is one of the largest commercial and residential developers on the West Coast. We build office complexes, apartment buildings, mixed-use developments. I started it 10 years ago with money I made from flipping houses in my 20s, and it grew faster than I ever imagined." Maya absorbed this. Morrison Development. She'd seen their signs around the city, huge projects going up with that name emblazoned on construction barriers. "So you're not just wealthy, you're really wealthy." "Yes." He looked almost apologetic. "I don't usually tell people right away because it changes things. They start treating me differently or they only want to know me because of the money, but I didn't want to lie to you." "I appreciate the honesty." Maya took a sip of her wine, thinking, "For what it's worth, I liked you when I thought you were just a regular guy with a nice beach house. This doesn't change how I see you. No, you're not going to start asking for expensive gifts or insider real estate tips." He was teasing, but there was real vulnerability in his eyes. "The only thing I want is to get to know you better. The real you, not your bank account." She reached across the table and took his hand. "Is that okay?" Ethan's fingers closed around hers, warm and sure. "That's more than okay." "That's perfect." After dinner, they walked along the marina, watching boats bob in their slips and seagulls wheel overhead. The evening was cool and pleasant, the storm a distant memory. "Can I tell you something crazy?" Ethan said as they sat on a bench overlooking the water. "When you showed up at my door Friday night, soaking wet and asking for help, my first thought after checking that you weren't a serial killer was that you were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen." Maya laughed. "I looked like a drowned rat. You looked real. And then we started talking and I couldn't believe how easy it was, how much I wanted to keep talking to you. I haven't felt that way in a long time." "I felt it too," Maya admitted. "I kept thinking I should be more freaked out about being stranded with a stranger, but instead, I was hoping the storm would last longer." Ethan turned to face her fully, and Maya's breath caught at the intensity in his eyes. "Maya, I know we've only known each other for 2 days. I know this is fast and probably crazy, but I can't stop thinking about you. I want to see where this goes." "Me too." Her voice came out whisper soft. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away, but Maya met him halfway. The kiss was gentle at first, exploratory, then deepened as she leaned into him. His hand came up to cup her face, and Maya felt like every nerve in her body was on fire in the best possible way. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. Definitely worth waiting for. They saw each other almost every day after that. Ethan would drive out to her apartment on weeknights, bringing takeout and wine, and they'd sit on her tiny balcony and talk until late. On weekends, Maya would go to the beach house and they'd cook together, walk on the sand and fall asleep on the couch watching movies. 3 weeks in, Ethan invited her to a charity gala his company was sponsoring. Maya panicked about what to wear until Ethan asked if he could buy her a dress, promising it was for his benefit since she'd be on his arm all night. She agreed reluctantly, then nearly fainted when he took her to a boutique where the cheapest dress cost more than her monthly rent. She chose a deep emerald green gown that hugged her curves and made her feel like a movie star. When Ethan picked her up the night of the gala, he actually stopped walking and stared. "You're going to be the most stunning woman there," he said, his voice rough with emotion. The gala was at a 5-star hotel, all glittering chandeliers and important people in expensive clothes. Maya felt out of her depth until Ethan took her hand and didn't let go all night. He introduced her to everyone simply as Maya, his girlfriend, with such pride in his voice that she felt 10 feet tall. She met his business partners, city council members, even a state senator. Everyone was polite and seemed genuinely interested in her work as an art teacher. A few people recognized her name from the gallery scene, which was surreal. "You're good at this," Ethan murmured as they danced to the live band. "Working the room. I'm faking it. I keep expecting someone to figure out I don't belong here." He pulled back to look at her seriously. "You belong anywhere you want to be. Don't let anyone, including yourself, tell you otherwise." The next morning, Maya woke up in Ethan's penthouse apartment in the city for the first time. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the skyline, and the entire place was decorated in modern minimalist style that should have felt cold but somehow didn't. Maybe because of the photographs scattered throughout. Family pictures, candid shots of the beach house, and one of her painting hanging in a place of honor in the living room. Ethan made her breakfast while she explored, finding his home office with its massive desk and multiple monitors, a gym that put her apartment complex's fitness room to shame, and a walk-in closet bigger than her bedroom. "This is a lot," she said, coming back to the kitchen. "Too much." Ethan looked worried. "No, just different from my world, but I'm learning to navigate it." She kissed him, tasting coffee and syrup. "As long as you're okay navigating mine too. Your world is my favorite world these days," and he proved it. Ethan showed up to her classes a few times, sitting in the back and watching her teach. He met her friends, normal people who worked normal jobs, and charmed them all by being genuinely interested in their lives. He helped her move her painting supplies from her cramped apartment to the beach house when she mentioned having no room to work on larger canvases. "I want you to have space here," he said, setting up an entire room as her studio with perfect northern light and storage for all her materials. "Paint whenever you want. This is your home too now." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "Ethan, this is too much. It's not enough." He took her hands. "Maya, I'm falling in love with you." "No, that's not right. I've already fallen. I'm in love with you and I want you in every part of my life." "I love you too," she said, the words spilling out before she could second-guess them. "I think I started falling that first night when you handed me towels and didn't make me feel like I was inconveniencing you." Ethan kissed her deeply, and they made love in her new studio as the sun set over the ocean, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. 4 months into their relationship, Maya met Emily, Ethan's sister, when she came to visit with her husband and 2 kids. Emily was a whirlwind of energy, warm and funny and immediately treating Maya like family. "I cannot believe you kept her a secret for so long," Emily scolded Ethan while her kids built sandcastles on the beach. "I had to hear about the mysterious girlfriend from Mom who heard from you in passing." "Rude. I wanted to make sure it was real before I subjected her to the family circus," Ethan said, but he was smiling. Emily turned to Maya. Is he treating you well? Because I have embarrassing stories I can tell if he's not. He's wonderful, Maya said honestly. Almost too wonderful sometimes. I keep waiting for the catch. The catch is he's a workaholic who forgets to eat when he's focused on a project, and he gets grumpy if he doesn't surf at least once a week. Emily ticked off on her fingers. But he's loyal and kind and the best brother I could ask for, so if he loves you with everything he has. That night, after Emily's family had left, Maya and Ethan walked along the shore in the moonlight. Your sister is amazing, Maya said. Your whole family seems incredible. They are, and they adore you, by the way. Mom called earlier to tell me not to screw this up, Maya laughed. No pressure. Ethan stopped walking and turned to face her, suddenly serious. Maya, I know it hasn't been that long. I know some people would say we're rushing. But I've never been more sure of anything in my life than I am about you, about us. I feel the same way. Maya's heart was pounding. Move in with me, here at the beach house. You said yourself your apartment is too small and too far from the college. The commute from here is better, and you'd have your studio and I'd get to wake up next to you every morning. Maya opened her mouth, then closed it. This was huge. They'd been together for 4 months, and while every day felt right, was it too soon for such a big step? You don't have to answer now, Ethan said quickly. Think about it. Take all the time you need. But Maya knew her answer. She'd known it for weeks, really, every time she felt disappointed when she had to leave the beach house and go back to her lonely apartment. Yes, she said. I want to move in with you. Ethan's grin was incandescent. He picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing, and Maya felt something settle in her chest. This was home. Not the house, but him. They spent the next 2 weeks moving Maya's belongings, which didn't amount to much. Her furniture went into storage except for a few pieces Ethan insisted they keep, because they meant something to her. Her clothes filled half of one closet in the master bedroom, looking sparse next to Ethan's wardrobe. We should go shopping, Ethan said one morning, eyeing her section with a frown. I have plenty of clothes. But you don't have beach clothes, dinner party clothes, gala clothes. And before you argue, this is partially selfish because I like buying you things. Maya rolled her eyes but let him take her shopping. She drew the line at the most expensive stores, feeling more comfortable in mid-range boutiques where the prices didn't make her hyperventilate. Ethan seemed to understand, and they compromised, picking out pieces that Maya genuinely loved rather than just expensive labels. Living together was easier than Maya had expected. They developed routines quickly. Ethan made coffee every morning while Maya took a shower. She cooked dinner most nights while he cleaned up after. Weekends were for lazy mornings in bed, walks on the beach, and Maya spending hours in her studio while Ethan worked in his office or caught up on emails. The first fight came 6 weeks after she moved in, and it was over something stupid. Ethan had agreed to have dinner with Maya's parents, who were driving down from Portland to meet him. The day before, he got called away on an emergency work trip to San Francisco. I'm so sorry, he said, throwing clothes into a suitcase. The deal is falling apart and I have to be there in person. I'll be back by tomorrow night at the latest. But dinner is tomorrow night. My parents are coming specifically to meet you. Can we reschedule? I really can't miss this meeting. Maya felt frustration rise in her throat. I know your work is important, but this is important too. I've been telling my parents about you for months and they're so excited to meet you. And I want to meet them, but Maya, this is a $60 million development. Hundreds of jobs are on the line. I can't just blow it off. I'm not asking you to blow it off. I'm asking you to figure out how to do both. Ethan stopped packing and looked at her. That's not fair. You know how demanding my work is. It's not always going to be convenient. I'm not asking for convenient. I'm asking for prioritization. You schedule meetings and conference calls and site visits, but when it comes to my life, to the people who matter to me, suddenly it's all negotiable. The words hung between them, heavy and painful. Ethan's jaw tightened. That's not true and you know it. Then prove it. Maya hated the way her voice shook. Figure out how to make this work. He was silent for a long moment, then pulled out his phone and made a call. Maya couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she heard Ethan rescheduling the meeting for early the next morning, promising to be there by 6 and stay as long as needed. But he had a commitment that evening he couldn't break. When he hung up, he looked at Maya. I'll fly out tonight, take the morning meeting, and be back by 4 tomorrow. That gives me time to shower and change before your parents arrive at 6. Happy? Maya felt guilty and relieved in equal measure. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, because you're right. Your family is important, and I want to meet them. I should have figured that out before you had to ask. They made up that night before Ethan left, but the fight lingered in Maya's mind. This was what it meant to date someone with his level of success and responsibility. There would always be demands on his time, crises that needed his attention. Could she handle always coming second to Morrison development? But when Ethan made it back the next day, exhausted and rumpled from the flight, and still greeted her parents with warmth and genuine interest, Maya's doubts faded. He told her father about his business with self-deprecating humor, asked her mother about her garden, and complimented the pie she'd brought like it was the best thing he'd ever eaten. After her parents left, both thoroughly charmed, Ethan collapsed on the couch and pulled Maya into his lap. Did I pass? He asked, nuzzling her neck with flying colors. My mom is already planning our wedding. She felt him tense slightly. Sorry, that was a joke. I didn't mean to freak you out. You didn't freak me out. Ethan tilted her chin up so she was looking at him. I want to marry you, Maya. Maybe not tomorrow, but someday. That's how serious I am about this. Maya's heart skipped. Really, really, I love you. I want forever with you. I want that too, she whispered and kissed him until they were both breathless. The holidays arrived in a blur of activity. Maya met more of Ethan's extended family at Thanksgiving, a massive gathering at Emily's house where she was welcomed with open arms. Christmas was quieter, just the two of them at the beach house, cooking dinner together and exchanging gifts. Ethan gave her a new easel and a set of professional-grade paints she'd been coveting for years. Maya gave him a painting she'd been working on in secret, a portrait of the beach house at sunrise, the light hitting the windows just so. It's perfect, Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. You're perfect. He handed her a small box and Maya's hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a delicate bracelet, simple and elegant with a small charm in the shape of a paintbrush. It's beautiful, Maya breathed. There's an engraving. She turned it over and read the tiny script. To Maya, who colors my world. Tears spilled down her cheeks and Ethan wiped them away gently. I love you so much, he said. Thank you for taking a chance on me, on us. Thank you for opening your door to a crazy woman in a storm. They made love in front of the fireplace, slow and tender, and Maya felt complete in a way she'd never experienced before. Winter turned to spring, and Maya's art started gaining more attention. A gallery in Los Angeles picked up several of her pieces, and she sold out a small show in the city. Ethan came to the opening, beaming with pride, and bought 2 paintings even though Maya insisted he already had enough of her work. I'll never have enough, he said simply. Her teaching contract was renewed for another year, with a small raise and the opportunity to teach an advanced painting seminar. Everything in Maya's life seemed to be clicking into place, and she'd never been happier. Then, in early March, Almost a year after the storm that had brought them together, Ethan surprised her with a weekend trip. He wouldn't tell her where they were going, just insisted she pack a bag and trust him. They drove north along the coast, the scenery spectacular as always, and pulled up to a small boutique hotel perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Their room had a private balcony and a fireplace, and champagne waiting on ice. "What's the occasion?" Maya asked, laughing as Ethan pulled her into his arms. "You'll see. Get dressed up for dinner. I made reservations at the restaurant downstairs." The restaurant was intimate and romantic, all candlelight and soft music. They were seated at a table by the window with a view of the sunset painting the sky in brilliant colors. Over appetizers, Ethan seemed nervous, fidgeting with his silverware and barely touching his food. Maya was about to ask if something was wrong when he stood up suddenly. "Maya," he said, his voice carrying just enough that nearby diners turned to look. "A year ago you knocked on my door in the middle of a storm and my life changed in the best possible way. You've made me happier than I ever thought I could be. You've challenged me, supported me, loved me even when I didn't deserve it. You've brought color and beauty and joy into every corner of my world, and I can't imagine my life without you in it." He dropped to one knee, and Maya's hands flew to her mouth as tears started streaming down her face. "Maya Chen, will you marry me?" He opened a small velvet box to reveal a stunning ring, a simple, elegant diamond that caught the light and sparkled like captured starlight. "Yes," Maya sobbed. "Yes, of course, yes." The restaurant erupted in applause as Ethan slid the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her. Maya was vaguely aware of people cheering, of the waiter appearing with more champagne, but all she could focus on was Ethan's face, the love and happiness shining in his eyes. That night, they lay tangled together in the hotel bed, Maya admiring her ring in the moonlight streaming through the windows. "I can't believe we're engaged," she murmured. "I would have asked sooner, but I wanted to get the timing right. I wanted it to be perfect. It was perfect." Maya shifted to look at him. "Although I have to ask, were you nervous? You seemed nervous," Ethan laughed. "Terrified. What if you said no?" "I would never say no to you, not about this." "Good, because I have plans for us, Maya, big plans." They spent the rest of the weekend talking about their future, what kind of wedding they wanted, something small and intimate, they agreed, and where they saw themselves in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years. Every plan included each other, woven together so tightly they couldn't imagine it any other way. The wedding planning process was surprisingly smooth. Maya had never been the type to dream about a big, elaborate wedding, and Ethan just wanted her to be happy. They decided on a ceremony at the beach house, just family and close friends, followed by a reception in a tent on the sand. Emily enthusiastically took on the role of maid of honor, while Ethan's best friend from college, Jason, agreed to be his best man. Maya's parents cried happy tears when she showed them the guest list and plans, thrilled their daughter had found someone who loved her so completely. They set the date for September, a year and a half after they'd first met. Maya insisted on a relatively short engagement because she didn't want to wait any longer than necessary to officially become Ethan's wife. The months flew by in a flurry of cake tastings, flower selections, and dress fittings. Maya found the perfect dress at a small bridal boutique, simple and elegant, strapless with a flowing skirt that reminded her of ocean waves. Ethan wasn't allowed to see it, but Emily took about 100 photos to torture him with later. 2 months before the wedding, Ethan came home from work looking thoughtful. Maya was in her studio, working on a series of paintings for a gallery show in Seattle, and she didn't hear him come in until he wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Hey," he murmured, kissing her neck. How's the work going? Good, I'm almost done with this one. She set down her brush and turned in his arms. What's up? You have that look. What look? The one where you're thinking about something big and trying to figure out how to tell me. Ethan smiled. I've been thinking about after the wedding, about our honeymoon. We decided on Italy, remember? 2 weeks in Tuscany, I know, but I was thinking about after that, about where we want to live long term. Maya's stomach flipped. Are you saying you don't want to live here anymore? No, not exactly. I love this house, but I've been offered a major project in Portland and it would require me to be there pretty frequently for the next few years. I know your parents are there, and the art scene is incredible. I thought maybe we could split our time between here and there. Maya thought about it. Portland would mean being closer to her family, access to bigger galleries and more opportunities for her art. But this beach house had become her sanctuary, the place where she felt most herself. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course. There's no rush. I just wanted to put it on your radar. They didn't talk about it again for a few weeks, but Maya couldn't stop thinking about it. Finally, she brought it up one evening as they cooked dinner together. I've been thinking about Portland, she said, chopping vegetables for a stir-fry. And I think you're right. It makes sense to have a place there, especially if you're going to be working on that project. But I don't want to give up the beach house. We don't have to give it up. We keep this as our primary home and get an apartment or condo in Portland for when we're there. Best of both worlds, Maya smiled. That could work, as long as I still have my studio here. Always. Ethan kissed the top of her head. Your studio is sacred ground. They found a beautiful condo in Portland's Pearl District, with huge windows and enough space for a second, smaller studio for Maya. It needed some work, but Ethan promised to have it ready by the time they returned from their honeymoon. The night before the wedding, Maya stood on the balcony of the beach house, looking out at the ocean. The same ocean that had been raging the night she met Ethan, now calm and peaceful under the stars. It felt like a full-circle moment, the universe bringing her back to where it all began. Can't sleep. Emily came to stand beside her, wrapping a shawl around Maya's shoulders, too excited, and a little nervous. It's normal to be nervous. You're making a huge commitment. I'm not nervous about marrying Ethan. I'm nervous about being a good wife, about navigating his world without losing myself. Emily squeezed her hand. You're already good for him. He's happier now than I've ever seen him. And you haven't lost yourself. You've grown into an even better version of yourself. That's what the right relationship does. Thank you, Maya said softly, for welcoming me into your family. Are you kidding? We're lucky to have you. Now come on, let's get you to bed. Tomorrow's a big day. The morning of the wedding dawned perfect and clear, the sky a brilliant blue without a single cloud. Maya woke early, too excited to sleep, and watched the sunrise from her bedroom window. In a few hours, she'd be Ethan's wife. The thought filled her with a joy so intense it almost hurt. The ceremony was at 4 in the afternoon, giving everyone time to set up and prepare. The tent looked magical, strung with white lights and filled with flowers in shades of white and pale blue. Chairs were arranged in rows on the sand, with an arbor at the front where Maya and Ethan would exchange vows. Maya got ready in the guest room with Emily, her mother, and her 2 best friends from college. They did her hair in loose waves with small white flowers tucked in, and her makeup soft and natural. When she finally put on her dress, everyone teared up. You look like a princess, her mother said, crying openly. Mom, you're going to make me cry and ruin my makeup, Maya protested, but she was smiling. A knock at the door announced it was time. Maya's father stood in the hallway, looking distinguished in his suit, and his eyes went wide when he saw her. My beautiful girl, he said, his voice rough. I'm so proud of you. They walked down the stairs and out onto the beach together. The string quartet started playing, and Maya's breath caught as she saw Ethan waiting for her at the arbor, looking impossibly handsome in a charcoal gray suit. His eyes locked on hers and didn't waver as she walked toward him, her father's arm steady under hers. When they reached the arbor, her father kissed her cheek and placed her hand in Ethan's. The officiant, a friend of Ethan's family, began the ceremony, but Maya barely heard the words. She was too focused on Ethan's face, the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the world. "I believe the couple has prepared their own vows," the officiant said. Ethan went first, pulling a folded paper from his pocket. "Maya, the night you knocked on my door, I thought the universe was playing a joke on me. Here was this beautiful, soaking wet woman asking for shelter, and all I wanted to do was protect you and keep you safe. I didn't know then that you'd be the one to save me, to show me what it means to truly live and love with your whole heart. You've brought color and light into my life in ways I never imagined possible. I promise to love you fiercely and tenderly, to support your dreams, to make you laugh when you're sad, and to always, always leave the door open for you, no matter what storm you're weathering. I promise to be your partner, your friend, your home. I love you, Maya. Today, tomorrow, forever." Maya was crying openly now, not caring about her makeup. She pulled out her own vows with shaking hands. "Ethan, when I ran through that storm to your door, I was looking for shelter from the rain. I didn't know I was running toward home. You've given me so much more than just a place to stay. You've given me a life I never dared to dream of. You've supported my art, cherished my quirks, and loved me with a generosity and kindness that takes my breath away. You challenge me to be braver, to take up space, to believe I deserve all the good things this life has to offer. I promise to love you with everything I am, to be your safe harbor when work gets overwhelming, to paint you 1,000 sunsets and remind you why beauty matters. I promise to laugh with you, dream with you, and build a life with you that's full of love and adventure and quiet moments by the ocean. I love you more than words can express. You're my always." There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife, and Ethan pulled Maya into a kiss that felt like coming home and starting an adventure all at once. The reception was a blur of happiness. They danced their first dance to a song they'd listened to on repeat during those early days of falling in love, and Maya felt like she was floating. Speeches were made, Emily telling embarrassing stories about Ethan's teenage years, and Maya's best friend recounting their college misadventures. Her father toasted to love and new beginnings, and Ethan's mother welcomed Maya into the family with tears streaming down her face. As the sun set, casting everything in golden light, Maya and Ethan snuck away from the party to walk along the water's edge. "Mrs. Morrison," Ethan said, testing out her new name. "How does it feel?" "Perfect." Maya leaned into him. "Although I'm keeping Chen for my art, I'm established with that name. I wouldn't expect anything else. You're your own person, and I love that about you." They stood there watching the waves, the party continuing behind them with laughter and music drifting on the breeze. Maya thought about the woman she'd been a year and a half ago, running through a storm with no idea her life was about to change forever. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan asked. "How grateful I am for that rainstorm, and for you taking in a stranger. Best decision I ever made." He turned her to face him. "I love you, Maya Morrison Chen. I love you too, Ethan Morrison, forever." They kissed as the sun melted into the ocean, beginning their forever under the same sky that had brought them together. The honeymoon in Italy was everything they'd dreamed. They spent 2 weeks wandering through vineyards, eating incredible food, and falling even more deeply in love. Maya painted while Ethan lounged in the sun, and they made love in their villa with the windows open to the Tuscan countryside. When they returned home, reality set in quickly. Ethan dove back into work, spending long days at the office and frequent trips to Portland for the new project. Maya threw herself into preparing for her gallery show in Seattle, working late nights in her studio. They were both busy, but they made time for each other. Date nights were sacred, no phones allowed. Weekends were spent at the beach house whenever possible, reconnecting and remembering why they'd fallen in love in the first place. 6 months into their marriage, on a random Tuesday evening, Maya realized she was late. She took a pregnancy test in the bathroom while Ethan was in his office on a conference call, her hands shaking as she waited for the results. 2 pink lines. Maya stared at the test, emotions crashing over her like waves. Joy, terror, excitement, fear. She and Ethan had talked about kids, agreed they wanted them eventually, but they hadn't planned for this soon. She walked to Ethan's office in a daze and stood in the doorway until he noticed her. He took one look at her face and immediately ended the call. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" Maya held up the test wordlessly. Ethan looked at it, looked at her, looked back at the test. "You're pregnant." His voice was barely above a whisper. "According to this, yes. I need to see a doctor to confirm, but these tests are pretty accurate." Ethan crossed the room in 2 strides and pulled her into his arms. "We're having a baby. Are you happy? I know we weren't planning this yet." He pulled back to look at her, and his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Maya, I'm thrilled. Scared out of my mind, but thrilled." "We're going to be parents." Relief flooded through her. "We're going to be parents," she echoed and started laughing. Ethan joined in, and they stood there in his office, holding each other and laughing and crying at the unexpected joy of it all. The pregnancy was confirmed by Maya's doctor a week later. She was 8 weeks along, which put her due date in early November. They decided to wait until the end of the first trimester to tell anyone, wanting to keep the news to themselves for a little while. Those first few months were hard on Maya. Morning sickness hit her like a freight train, and there were days when she could barely get out of bed. Ethan took care of her with unwavering patience, bringing her crackers and ginger ale, holding her hair when she was sick, and never once complaining about picking up all the household slack. "You're going to be an amazing dad," Maya told him one night as they lay in bed, his hand resting on her still flat stomach. "I'm going to try my best. I had a great example in my father." When they finally told their families at the 13-week mark, the reactions were everything they'd hoped for. Emily screamed so loud her kids came running to see what was wrong, and her parents both cried happy tears. Ethan's parents immediately started planning to visit more often, and his mother began knitting baby blankets. "You want to know the gender?" the ultrasound technician asked at the 20-week appointment. Maya and Ethan looked at each other. They'd been debating this for weeks. "Yes," they said in unison, then laughed. "It's a girl," the technician said with a smile, and Maya burst into tears for approximately the 1,000th time that week. Pregnancy hormones were no joke. They spent the next few months getting ready. Ethan converted one of the spare bedrooms into a nursery, painting it a soft lavender and assembling furniture that came with instructions more complex than building codes. Maya washed tiny clothes and arranged stuffed animals, her heart so full she thought it might burst. Her art took a back seat to preparing for the baby, but she didn't mind. She did a few small pieces inspired by impending motherhood, abstract paintings of nesting and new beginnings that felt deeply personal. In early November, 3 weeks before her due date, Maya woke up at 2 in the morning to a strange cramping sensation. She tried to ignore it and go back to sleep, but the cramps came back 15 minutes later, stronger this time. "Ethan," she said, shaking his shoulder. I think I'm having contractions. He bolted upright immediately. Now, are you sure? Pretty sure. They're regular and getting stronger. The next few hours were a blur of timing contractions, calling the doctor and driving to the hospital. Maya labored for 16 hours, and it was the hardest thing she'd ever done. Ethan never left her side, holding her hand, whispering encouragement, and being exactly what she needed in each moment. Their daughter was born on November 9th at 6:34 in the evening, weighing 7 pounds, 2 ounces. She had Ethan's dark hair and Maya's nose, and she was the most beautiful thing either of them had ever seen. "She's perfect," Ethan breathed, his voice thick with emotion as he held his daughter for the first time. "She's absolutely perfect." They named her Lily after Maya's grandmother, who had been a painter herself. Lily Morrison came home 3 days later to a house full of flowers and balloons, and settled into their lives like she'd always been there. The first few months of parenthood were exhausting and wonderful. Maya had never felt so tired or so in love. Ethan was a hands-on father, taking night feedings whenever he could, changing diapers without complaint, and singing off-key lullabies that somehow always worked to soothe Lily when she was fussy. "You're a natural," Maya told him one night, watching him rock Lily to sleep with such tenderness it made her heart ache. "I had good motivation to figure it out." He looked up at Maya with so much love in his eyes. "Thank you for her, for our family, for everything." Lily was 6 months old when Maya finally got back to painting regularly. She'd set up a baby monitor in the studio, and she'd work during Lily's naps, losing herself in color and texture while her daughter slept peacefully. The paintings from this period were different from her earlier work, warmer, more vibrant, full of life and love. A gallery in San Francisco picked up the entire series, calling it her best work yet. Maya couldn't argue. She was painting from a place of complete contentment, and it showed. On their second wedding anniversary, they had a quiet celebration at home. Emily and her husband had taken Lily for the night, giving them precious alone time. 2 years, Maya said, curled up next to Ethan on the couch, a fire crackling in front of them. "It feels like forever and no time at all." "Best 2 years of my life," Ethan said. "Well, 2.5 if we count from when we met. Remember how you promised to always leave the door open for me, of course." Maya smiled. "You've kept that promise every single day, not just literally, but in every way that matters. You've made space for me in your life, in your world. You've never made me feel like I was asking for too much or wanting too much. Because you could never ask for or want too much. You deserve everything, Maya. I just try to give you as much as I can." They made love slowly, tenderly, celebrating not just their anniversary but the life they'd built together. The next morning they picked up Lily and spent the day at the beach, watching their daughter experience the ocean for the first time. She was fascinated by the waves, laughing and kicking her legs in excitement. "She's going to be a beach baby like her parents," Ethan said, snapping photos with his phone. Maya watched her husband and daughter playing in the sand, the same beach where they'd been married, where their life together had really begun, and felt a wave of gratitude so profound it brought tears to her eyes. She'd run through a storm 2.5 years ago looking for shelter, and found everything she'd ever wanted. Life continued in a beautiful rhythm. Lily grew into a happy, curious toddler who loved painting with her mother and going to work with her father at his office in Portland. Maya's career flourished, with galleries from New York to Los Angeles featuring her work. Ethan's company continued to thrive, building developments that changed skylines and communities. But the heart of their life remained the beach house, where they'd met during that fateful storm. They spent every possible moment there, creating memories on the same sand where they'd exchanged vows. They taught Lily to swim in those waters, built elaborate sandcastles, and watched countless sunsets. On the third anniversary of the night they met, Ethan surprised Maya with dinner on the beach. He'd set up a table with candles and flowers, recreating their first real date at the Italian restaurant. "I wanted to mark the occasion," he explained as they ate. "The night that changed my life." "Mine too." Maya raised her glass. "To rainstorms and open doors." "To rainstorms and open doors," Ethan echoed, clinking his glass against hers. Lily, now 2 years old, ran circles around them on the beach, collecting shells and chattering to herself. She was the perfect combination of both of them, with Ethan's determination and Maya's creativity, and watching her grow was the greatest adventure either of them had ever experienced. "Are you happy?" Ethan asked suddenly. "Truly happy." Maya didn't even have to think about it. "More than I ever imagined possible. You've given me everything I never knew I wanted. A home, a family, a life full of love and beauty and purpose. How could I not be happy? Good. Because I plan on spending the rest of my life making sure you stay that way." "That's a tall order." "I'm up for the challenge." He leaned over and kissed her as the sun set behind them, painting the sky in those brilliant shades of orange and purple that Maya had captured in her paintings hundreds of times but never grew tired of. Years passed in a beautiful blur. They had a second child, a son they named Jack, who had Maya's eyes and Ethan's entrepreneurial spirit. The beach house was filled with the sounds of children laughing, running through rooms that had once been silent. Maya's studio became a space she shared with her kids, teaching them to see the world through an artist's eyes. Ethan scaled back his work hours as the kids grew, wanting to be present for every milestone, every school play, every bedtime story. Morrison Development continued to thrive under his leadership, but his priorities had shifted. Family came first, always. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they renewed their vows on the same beach where they'd gotten married. Lily was 9 and Jack was 5, and both participated in the ceremony, reading poems they'd written about love and family. Emily stood as Maya's matron of honor again, and Jason returned as Ethan's best man. 10 years, Ethan said in his vows. 10 years of waking up next to the woman of my dreams. 10 years of building a life that's more beautiful than anything I could have designed on paper. Maya, you are my heart, my home, my everything. I love you more today than I did the day I married you, and I'll love you even more tomorrow. Maya's vows were simple and from the heart. Ethan, you asked me to stay with you after that rainstorm, and I've never wanted to leave. You're my safe harbor, my greatest adventure, my truest love. Thank you for the life we've built, for the family we've created, for every single day we get to spend together. I love you beyond measure, and I always will. They kissed as their children cheered and their family and friends applauded, and Maya thought about that scared woman who'd run through a storm so long ago. She could never have imagined this future, this incredible life full of love and laughter and endless possibilities. That night, after the party had ended and the kids were asleep, Maya and Ethan walked along the beach hand in hand, just like they'd done countless times before. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't knocked on my door that night?" Ethan asked. "Sometimes. But then I remember that I was supposed to find you. That storm brought me exactly where I needed to be. I'm glad it did. I'm glad you stayed." "I'll always stay," Maya promised and kissed him under the stars. The years continued to unfold in joy and love. They watched their children grow, celebrated milestones and achievements, weathered challenges together as a team. Maya's art hung in museums across the country, and Ethan's developments won awards for their innovative design and community impact. But their greatest achievement was the life they'd built together, the family they'd created, the love that grew stronger with each passing day. 20 years after that fateful rainstorm, Maya and Ethan sat on the deck of the beach house, watching their grandchildren play in the sand. Lily, now a veterinarian like her aunt, had 2 kids of her own. Jack, following in his father's footsteps, was making a name for himself in sustainable architecture. "Can you believe it's been 20 years?" Maya asked, leaning into Ethan's embrace. "Best 20 years of my life." Ethan kissed the top of her head. "You know what I think about sometimes? What I would have said if you hadn't agreed to stay that first morning, if you'd just gotten in your car and driven away." Maya turned to look at him. "What would you have said?" "I would have begged you to stay. Would have told you I knew it was crazy that we just met, but I couldn't let you walk away. Would have said stay here with me and hoped like hell you'd say yes." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "I would have said yes. Every time I would have said yes. I know. That's why we work. That's why this whole crazy, beautiful adventure has been so perfect. Because we chose each other, and we keep choosing each other every single day." They sat there watching the sun set over the ocean, surrounded by the sounds of their family, the life they'd built from a chance encounter during a storm. Maya thought about all the art she'd created over the years, all the paintings that had tried to capture beauty and emotion and truth. But nothing she'd ever painted could match the masterpiece of her actual life, the colors and textures and depths of love she'd experienced with Ethan. The beach house stood strong behind them, a testament to weathering storms and providing shelter. It had been their beginning, their constant, their home. Inside those walls, they'd laughed and cried, made love and made memories, raised children and built dreams. The same windows that had shown them the storm now reflected the sunset, golden and perfect. As the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in brilliant hues, Maya squeezed Ethan's hand and smiled. She'd run through a rainstorm 20 years ago looking for shelter, and found forever instead. Found a love that was patient and kind, fierce and gentle, enduring and ever-growing. Found a man who'd opened his door to a stranger and his heart to a lifetime. And she'd stayed, just like he'd begged her to, choosing him every single day for the rest of her life. It was the best decision she'd ever made.